Afternoon, everyone. day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's English file lesson. My name is Karabo C. This program is funded by the Department of Education in partnership with Saibono, broadcast by Pakama Research and Development. Our lesson today will be focused on our short stories, and our topic is Next Door. Next Door is written by Gert Vanagat, and it is part of your 8 short stories. Let's listen now to what happened on the fateful day.
Yeah, folks, there's a lot of tears in this world and a lot of heartaches. You know how it goes. You get to fighting with your sweetie pie over nothing at all. And then things, they just get out of hand till you can't see anything. Well,
Listen,
that got me thinking.
it's us.
Well, I want to tell you something. You wouldn't be in this mess if it wasn't for self-respect and foolish pride.
Ain't that the truth?
Swallow that self-respect. Bury that pride and do it now. You hear? Time to make up, you spat lovers out there. You know you care. You know your love's blind. Yeah.
Jeez, I'm muffing up. I'm sorry.
And here's a very, very special request.
Give us a word, boy.
5 keys singing just for you. Out of sight, out of mind.
Oh, yeah.
This goes from the mule Harger to his one and only darling wife, Annie. Out of sight, out of mind.
What?
Mabel, Mabel, just wait a minute. Honey, honey muffin.
You.
Mabel, no. Sweet, I'm trying to figure it out. Just wait a minute, Mabel. It's gotta be
Leave me alone. And all the time, you're making lovey-dovey with your wife.
I just don't get it.
Oh, fool.
Honey, baby, you gotta listen.
Don't honey baby me, you freelo.
I'm telling you, Mabel, I didn't send no message. It's gotta be another Annie and Lemieux Harger. I mean, it's gotta be.
You must think I'm nuts.
I know it sounds screwy, but I'm telling you.
I'm the one that's screwy. Screwy, dizzy, and just plain dumb. Don't touch me, you one.
Calm down, will you?
Lemmy,
Right here.
your wife wants you? She can have it.
Don't get tough, Mabel.
Only you're not gonna look so great.
What? What did you... Just calm down, Mabel.
You going somewhere, Lemuel?
I know where you want me to go, baby. I know where you want. Don't shoot, baby.
You're going straight to hell in a handbasket.
Mabel, don't shoot, baby. Just... Oh, my God.
Pray and sweat.
I'm sweating. I'm sweating, baby. No, no.
There you have it. Next Door. The sounds made by the neighbors and our young chap seated there and listening through that thin dividing wall of the 2 apartments. He tried to help, isn't it? Out of sight, out of mind. But it wasn't meant to be. Let's listen to further arguments that people can hear.
Best I can. What do you want from me?
Well, look, I'm working full day all week, you know.
I'm working on it. At the vacuum cleaner broke today.
No, look, I don't even know when I come home. It's crazy.
I'm sorry. Whatever.
Look at the fireplace. It's crazy.
So what? Who
I know.
cares?
Oh,
I'm working. The laundry's going. I started it. Just get on with it.
you're lazy. You're lazy. You're lazy. You're lazy.
I'm money. You give me $20 a week to buy groceries and do the laundry. I don't think that's
What about a credit card bill? What about that?
That's not my
$100
problem.
every month, and, you know?
I need to have some clothes every once in a while and look presentable. If we ever go out, why do we go out? Why don't we stay home and eat dinner?
Well, when we go out, you just argue about my friends, and you say that my friends are, I don't know,
Oh.
you like them all, you know?
Oh, give me a break.
Joe and
Give me a break. All you guys do is like to drink beer all the time and make fun. I'm sick of it. It's boring.
It's better staying at home looking at this.
It's boring.
But, you know?
I don't care. I'm sick of it.
Oh, yeah?
You know, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here all day and clean for you?
Yeah, that's right, you should.
I'm not going to do it.
You're the woman, I'm making the money.
You cook for a change. I want to make a living.
Just imagine if you were Paul, home alone at night and listening to such arguments next door. You hear people screaming, you hear gunshots going off. What would you have done if you were Paul? Okay.
I'm doing the best I can.
This genre is about social realism. Getting into grips with what is happening around us. We are social beings, isn't it? We do not live in isolation. Hint of next door is the suspense it creates. It's soon created when the reader realizes that Paul's parents are going to leave him home alone for the evening. The further suspense is that as soon as the heavy argument is heard from the apartment next door, also there is a hint of a crime. That is what you have listened first on the video. Hints of crime. What happened? Shots were fired. Police come knocking to ask if Paul heard the shot. The woman tries to bribe Paul. Okay. Where is this story taking place? The setting. We have the time and the place, as we have explained before. When you deal with setting, you must always think time, and you must also think place. Think where. You must think where and think when. So our story takes place in the 1900s. We hear music. The parents talking about pictures. What are pictures? Not your selfies, not the pictures that you see on the magazine. Pictures meaning film or movie. They are going out to watch a movie. So they are going to the pictures. There is a dialing system of older phones. You know this one, isn't it? A phone that is on the cradle. Yes. This is set in the 1900s. Place. It takes place in the Leonard's home, family home. It's an old house. Can you see the old house there? Divided into 2 apartments. Colloquially, you call an apartment, In South Africa, we normally call them what? Flats. You are familiar with the word flat, isn't it? There is a wall between the apartments, and they are very thin. What does that indicate, or what does that imply? The thinness, meaning one can listen or can hear what is actually taking place in the other apartment. So they are very close. Again, the setting, it is very significant in the story. That is the Leonard's house or the Leonard's apartment or family home. It's very significant in the story. Even though Paul is left alone, the action next door is what spark a whole chain of events that will change him forever. It sets the pace of what the story is all about. So that is our setting. Who tells the story? We have the narrator. It is narrated in third person by an unknown direct observer. So somebody who tells or who narrates the story, we call them a narrator. This one is in third person. That is, we cannot actually see the person. He is observing at a distance. And they are giving us accurate accurate events, how they occur, step by step, in sequence. What is also at play here? It is the irony of the whole story next door. Paul's mother does not want him to go to the movie because it is not suitable for children. Remember, when we deal with irony, we are dealing with irony in the extract or irony in the whole story, like in this case. Paul's mother does not want him to go to the movie because it is not suitable for the children. Let's see why the movie would not be suitable for the children. Because it would be violent. There will be swearing. There could also be sex. And it could also be very scary. So we are protecting our young ones from this. It is an X-rated movie. But when we see the word PG-13, it means parents strongly cautioned some material may be inappropriate for children under 13. And I know you know how old Paul is, isn't it? So he may not see such films. Remember what we said about irony? We use the word but. The parents, or we, are protecting Paul from this inappropriate movie that the parents were about to watch, or they were going to watch in the evening. But on the other hand, what happens? at home, Paul is exposed to violence. How so? We hear shots fired. There is arguing and shouting next door. You heard the shouting. We heard things banging. And that's what Paul's parents wanted to protect him against. But unfortunately, he got to be involved in that. Swearing. When couples fight, they exchange explicitives or swearing words or profanities when they shout. There's a shouting match at hand. We have the idea of sex in terms of infidelity. The man's wife has left him. His lover is at his home. So that's an inappropriate for a child as young as Paul to hear, isn't it? It is also very scary. During the fight, Paul gets scared. Firstly, he gets scared that these people are going to kill each other. Later on, he gets very scared that he might have caused someone's death. Can you see Paul's predicament? Can you see the irony at play here? And each time you respond to questions, remember, you must give us one side, and then you must give us the other side. The but must be there for you to earn 2 marks. It is not only about marks, isn't it? It is the idea that we want to instill in you that you must know what irony is. Saying something but meaning something. The parents are protecting Paul from an inappropriate movie. They leave him at home. But what happens next? Paul is confronted, but Paul, let me use the word but Paul is confronted or is exposed to the very same situation that his parents were protecting against. Let's look at irony furthermore. Paul's father says, his staying home alone will be an adventure. True, isn't it? Paul's evening at home definitely turns out to be an adventure. You know what an adventure is? An exciting experience. You get to learn things. You get to get involved in situations. His mother asked, how is my little adventurer? He's going to explore, isn't it? But, our key word again for irony, but it is not the kind of adventure his father is thinking of. He probably thinks Paul will be glued on his microscope learning new things. But it did not turn out that way. When Paul asks about the show, his mother says that it wasn't for children. But it is quite likely that it would have been less frightening than what he has had to endure. When he first heard the argument and the fighting, and he had to think, he had to take action. That is an adventure. Our adventure begins. Let's see. Let's go together. Come with me. So that's that. Can you see people arguing there? Fighting? Yes. When Paul's parents leave, they are secure in the knowledge that in an emergency, you know what an emergency is, isn't it? When trouble brews, there must something that can kick in. Their son can contact the neighbors with whom they share a duplex. So the neighbors would certainly come in and assist Paul. So they are safe. They are clear that no, we can go and enjoy the evening. We know we have the neighbors. If our little son gets into trouble, he will be able to go next door and get help. As soon as they leave, our part again, as soon as they leave, what happens? Paul becomes increasingly disturbed by an argument between these neighbors. False sense of safety, isn't it? Which he hears distinctly through a shadow, very loudly, that he can hear. There's an irony, isn't it? Right. Paul has to intervene because these people might kill each other. He was supposed to be the one asking for help from them, but it turns out that he must intervene, and he calls All Night Sam, the ever-present DJ, and makes a dedication from Mr. to Mrs. Hager as a plea for what? For reconciliation. He wants to stop them from fighting. Reconciliation, reconcile, bringing two people together that were in argument. Right. This ensuing explosion, when the woman hears the dedication, warns us all is not right. At first, she's very happy. They're talking about us. Now, in fact, she is not Mrs. Hager. Remember, Paul all along thought that it was Mr. and Mrs. Hager. A frantic argument, the sound of gunshots, and the hurried exit of the woman strike terror in the boy's heart. He's now very scared. But the real Mrs. Hager returns what Paul has actually intended when he makes the call to the radio station. He wanted to bring the feuding or the arguing couple together, but he exacerbated the fight. He made it worse. On the other side, what happened? The real Mrs. Hager walks in. Can you see the suitcase there? When Mrs. Hager comes in, we have the themes that we ought to explore here. One, theme of loss of innocence. And who's losing his innocence here? Innocent meaning you don't know anything, your mind is pure, you haven't been polluted by a lot of bad things that's happening in our world. Up to this point, Paul has been protected from violent behavior at home. His own parents argue gently and politely, not in front of him, isn't it? They take it to the bedroom or when he's not around. You remember their first argument? Paul's parents, whether to leave him at home or to take him along. They did it so civilly. They spoke together until they agreed that, okay, Paul is going to remain at home. Not surprising that he is very disturbed by what is happening next door. And we know he is innocent. How do we know that he is innocent? His mother still calls him baby. Right. This incident throws him into an adult situation and he loses some of his youthful innocence because he heard things that he was not supposed to hear. He was exposed to the violence and the swearing and the shooting, illustrated by the fact that things in his pocket are not a boy's playthings. The money, remember he was bribed, a woman's tissue stained by lipstick. A young boy is not going to keep this in his pocket. We agree, isn't it? He learns also that marriages or relationships can be very difficult and that people can be deceitful. Difficult because they fight. Deceitful because they are not faithful. They lie. Right. The next theme is involvement in other people's lives. Sometimes with disastrous consequences. If you get involved in other people's life, sometimes it can be for the worst. In this instance, we know what Paul's intention was, isn't it? He feels compelled, he feels forced to try and save the situation next door. He phones the DJ on the radio, All Night Sam. He's asking them to give the message from Mr. Hager to Mrs. Hager saying that he loves her. The DJ is willing to get involved despite knowing very little about the circumstances. We have two people meddling in other people's business. That's Paul. Two, that's All Night Sam. We find conflict. Who's fighting? Paul's parents are in disagreement as to whether to leave Paul at home or they must go with Paul to the movies or the pictures, as they call it then. Paul's father thinks that he will be okay. Paul will be okay at home, alone. While on the other hand, Paul's mother thinks, it's not going to work. It is too risky for her child or for her baby. But the husband was very persuasive. Mr. Hager and the blonde woman are also fighting on the other hand. It's fighting, it's conflict. Both the Leonards, that is Paul's family, and Mr. Hager are talking in low voices when they argue, as they do not wish to highlight or to make public their conflict to their neighbors. But now Paul is compelled to save the situation. Furthermore, By allowing their neighbors to hear each other fighting, both the Leonards and Mr. Hager would be publicly airing their disagreements or disharmony. No one wants to air their dirty linen in public, isn't it? Yes. They are attempting to display an image of happiness and harmony rather than one of conflict. Mr. Hager tells the blonde woman to turn up the radio when they are fighting. Why is that so? Turning up the radio. She's aware that the wall is thin. The people next door will hear them. So when you turn up the radio, you actually closing up the argument. You don't want people to hear what you say, but they will only hear what? Music, the sound of music. Our young Paul is a true adventurer. An 8-year-old boy, like we said initially, in the apartment, home alone. What does he do to keep time? He looks things through his microscope while his parents are away. That's an adventure for young boys, isn't it? Use of the microscope. Unfortunately, he hears an argument between a man and a woman coming from their neighbor's apartment. He becomes distressed when the fighting intensifies. He hears the crockery being smashed. He breaks his microscope. Paul wants to prevent them from killing each other. Then he calls Sam to help. He's very innocent. He thinks it is Mr. Hager and his wife fighting. So you got the gist of it all? So let's proceed. After hearing the shots, what does he do? He hides away. He feels guilty that he might be responsible for Mr. Hager's death. He could hear very clearly that the woman was livid, was very angry, and Mr. Hager was trying to stop the woman from shooting at him. Unfortunately, the shots went off. He doesn't tell the police or his parents what he heard. Let's look at the next character. We have Mrs. Leonard, Paul's mother. Is she not protective? She's not just protective, but overprotective to her baby. He thinks the boy should not be exposed to the type of movie that they were going to watch. To make sure that her son is safe, she writes down the telephone numbers of the police, of the fire department, and the theater and Dr. Faley in case Paul gets ill. So she makes sure that nothing wrong happens to her son, her baby. When they come back from the movie, she says they have done the right thing to leave Paul home, as the movie truly was not suitable for the children. Something happens now. She finds the roll of money when she empties Paul's pockets. But she doesn't think much of it. At face value, her son is safe. He's actually sleeping. because he is just a little boy and there's trust. She trusts him completely. Our parents trust us, isn't it? Yes. Mr. Leonard, Paul's father, he thinks Paul can go with them to the movies if his wife worries too much about Paul's safety. Otherwise, she may not enjoy the evening. That wouldn't be nice, isn't it? Worrying about your little baby at home. They lock the doors and the windows to make sure that Paul is safe. He goes on to correct his wife, saying that Paul is not a baby, but he is what? A big boy. He tells his wife, Paul knows how to dial. To dial what? The phone. He feels that Paul is old enough to stay at home alone and that it will be very safe for him. Even says it will be an adventure. We spoke about an adventure earlier on, isn't it? Yes. All night Sam, our DJ. He's a radio DJ, an announcer, and he broadcasts messages and dedicates songs to people. So he's a known man in the community. He gives the radio station telephone number over the radio so that people, listeners, can call him in and dedicate messages and songs to people that they love. Paul takes down the number, calls All Night Sam. They call him All Night Sam because his shows goes on and on the whole night. He says he's giving the message from who to who? From Mr. Lemuel K. Hager to his lovely wife, Mrs. Hager, to do what? So that they can reconcile or make up. Was Paul sent? No. He was just intervening and trying to help. What does he do? All night Sam? He promises that he will get the couple together by broadcasting the marriage, saying marriage is not a bowl of cherries. Meaning, it is not always pleasant. When you eat cherries, they are sweet and they are lovely, very delicious. But marriage is not all pleasant all the time. Right. We have our Mr. Hager. Let's see how he is. He's a short man, balding, with a hairline, mustache. And he lives next door to the Leonards, that is Paul's family. He had a fight with his wife, and the wife left him. But he did not stay alone. What did he do? He found someone else who's now sharing the apartment with him when his wife is away. Infidelity. We spoke about that. Infidelity, not being very faithful. Then he gets into a huge fight with this woman. We don't know why they are fighting, but there's a huge fight. Then makes Paul do something about it. And he is glad that his wife is back. Our darling Mrs. Hager's lover, how is she? Let's see. A blonde woman with a loud pitched voice visits Mrs. Hager while his wife is away. They argue. She hears the dedication on the radio. She gets very furious. She fires 3 shots at Mr. Hager. then she becomes scared that she killed a man. She runs away and meets Paul outside, who is also concerned about what is happening next door. He wants to bribe Paul with candy, a bicycle, and gives him money to keep quiet about the incident. Mustn't tell the police. We have Mrs. Hager on the other side of town, who also listened or heard the dedication on the radio. And she became very excited and decided, whoa, it's time to go home. The real Mrs. Hager had the message. She comes back to her husband, believing he really loves her and wants to reconcile with her. Ironic, isn't it? Question time, question time. What is going to happen after you've read the book? Ultimately, you are going to sit for writing activities in your class or an exam in June, and the soon coming prep exam. We have what? You have your table of contents when you get the book. Section C, short stories. It will let you know that in this section, questions are set on the following short stories. In this case, it will be next door and another story. And then we have question 5. They will tell you that you are writing about question 5. It will give you an instruction. Read the extracts from the 2 short stories below and answer the questions set on each. You may not write one extract. You answer on both extracts. And the length of your response or answer is dependent again on what? On the marks allocated. In your head, principle of 1 mark, 1 fact, 2 marks, 2 facts, 3 marks, it will be an open-ended question. You must now elaborate more. We want to hear what you say. Convince us that you are worth the 3 marks. Next door, extract I. It will be termed extract I. Firstly, you will get an introduction of what the extract is all about. Let's see. I'm going to read the extract with you. That's what we expect from you. Do not start by answering the questions. What you need to do first is you read the extract first. Very important. She and Paul screamed at the same time, and then she grabbed him as he started to run. You want candy? She said wildly. Bicycle? No, thank you, said Paul shyly. Not at this time. You haven't seen or heard a thing, right? She said, you know what happens to squealers. Yes, cried Paul. She dug into her purse and brought out perfumed mulch of face tissues, bobby pins, and cash. Here, take. She panted. It's yours, all yours. And there's more where that came from. If you keep your mouth shut. She stuffed it into his trousers. Paul doesn't have a choice, isn't it? To refuse the money, isn't it? She stuffed it into his trousers pocket. She looked at him fiercely, then fled into the street. Paul ran back into his apartment, jumped into bed, and put pulled the covers. Frightening, scary, isn't it? You want to hide away from everything that you have seen, what you have heard. Paul wants to hide away from what he has heard and what he has just seen. The threat that he got from the blonde woman. So where's the best place to hide? Under the covers. Under his blankets in bed. Over his head in the hot, look at this, in the hot, dark cave of the bed. He cries because he and all-night Sam helped to kill a man. A policeman came tramping into the house very soon, and he knocked on both apartment doors with his billy club. Numb Paul crept out of the hot, dark cave and answered the door. Just as he did, the door across the hall opened, and there stood Mr. Hager, our bold, short man. Haggard, but old. Can you see the place? Always Hager and Haggard. Yes, sir, said Hager. He was a small, body man with a hairline mustache. Can I help you? The first question that we get after we have read our extract is this one. Matching columns. Choose a description from column B with the name in column A. What does it tell you, learners? Grade 12? That you must know your characters, the names of the people in the story, in order for you to respond to this question and earn your full marks. Write only the letter A to E next to the question number 5.1.1 to 5.1.1D in the answer book. Learners, it is very important that you adhere to the numbering sequence in your question paper. It is now June. In 2 months' time, a month's time, we are in our prelims. And if you are doing short stories, remember in your head, it is question 5. So our question 5.1.1, column A, what do we have? We have Lemuel, we have Charlotte, Paul, and Rose. We are given 4 names there that you have to match in column B. Let's see. In column B, is Lemuel a tall 8-year-old? Is Charlotte a big motherly woman? Is Paul a small bald man? Is Rose an overprotective father? Or a big blonde woman? No guessing. Please do not guess. I hope you've got them right now. You know who is who. Correct, grade 12 learners? Yes. You are clever, I know. You know your book. You are writing or you are responding to this question for how many marks? 4 marks. 4 giveaway marks if you know your story well. Of the 8 stories, remember you must know them all and know all the characters in case you get any 2 short stories in your exam. Let's look at the responses. Light bulb, You remember? Yes. Let's see. Who is Lemuel? Lemuel is a small, bulgy man. Do you have that? Give yourself a tick. Yes, you are correct. And who is Charlotte? A big blonde woman. Correct. You got the next one right. We give you a tick. Yes, that's E. Who is Paul, by the way? He is a tall 8-year-old. Correct. You get your next mark for 3 marks now. And who is Rose? Rose is a big motherly woman. How many marks did you get? I hope you got all 4 correct. Yes. The D, overprotective father, does not form part of the question. You haven't guessed. You know your answers. You have 4 marks in the bag. Thank you. Let's look at actual learners' responses. This learner says it's C, E, A, B. And then the other learner says it's D, E, A, C. The next question, we continue with our responses. With our questions now, refer to lines 1 to 2. She and Paul started to run. To whom does she refer in line 1? That's the first question. Why does she grab Paul? So what is your answer? Let's see if these learners are correct. Can you see the learner with a hand raised? Yes. This learner says it refers to Charlotte. Then the other one says it refers to Mrs. Charlotte Hager. Are they correct? Let's see. Yes, we give this learner on the side mark. Correct, it's Charlotte. Next, this side is Mrs. Charlotte Hager. Gave us in full with the surname and a mark. Correct. Is that correct? No. It is not correct. It is not Charlotte Hager. Why is it not Charlotte Hager? If you give Charlotte, it's correct because it is the woman whom Mr. Hager is having an affair with. But immediately you give a name Charlotte Hager, it's going to be correct here with Charlotte Hager. But then this part, Hager, it's wrong. So it makes the whole thing incorrect. It's an incorrect fact, isn't it? Charlotte was not married to Mr. Hager. Do you see what happened here? Charlotte is the woman that has an affair with Mr. Hager. They are not married. So this fact here, Mrs. Charlotte Hager, is incorrect. Be careful what you write. Right. Then this learner on this side does not get a mark. Let's see the second question. Why does she grab Paul? Who's grabbing Paul? Charlotte. This learner says she does not want Paul to report her about the shooting. And then this other learner says What is she afraid of? Or why is afraid he might tell on about the shooting? Okay, let's see. We give this learner a mark. Do we? Yes. She's afraid that he might tell on her about the shooting. So this learner gets how many marks? The 1 mark there, we have 1, we have 1. This one says, doesn't want Paul to tell about the shooting. We give a mark. Oh, yes, we give a mark. We must write clearly, right? Then this learner gets a 2, and this one gets 1. And a wrong fact was given at the beginning, so the learner loses a mark. Let's continue. You will also get multiple choice question. No guessing. Do not guess. Know the story thoroughly. I plead with you. Let's see what happens here. In line 6, you haven't seen or heard a thing, she said. You know what happens to squealers. The instruction of the question says, choose the correct answer to complete the following sentence. Write only the letter A or D next to the question number 5.1.2 in the answer book. You choose the correct answer. We give you alternatives that you can choose from. And the instruction says you must write the question number and followed by the letter A or D of the choice that you have made. Where do you write? In your answer. The question is, when the woman refers to squealers in line 6, she means people who do what? You know the answer? Write it down. Let's see. Okay. A, squealers are people who speak very softly. B, tells a secret. Start crying loud, squealing. Keep a secret. I know you got the answer right. Yes, the answer is B. Tell a secret. When the woman refers to squealers in line 6, she means people who tell a secret. That's your number B. So you write in your answer book 5.1.2 and B. Tell a secret. You can write B as well as the full answer. But if you have chosen or picked, just B will suffice. It's enough. Right. You will also have or be required to respond to questions that require you to give 2 items, 2 points, like in this question. Refer to lines 9 to 11. Learners, remember, when you are given line references, you go back to the extract or to the passage and you start reading. You do not answer your question before you go to the extract and read. The ellipsis there, 3, tells you that there are missing words that you need to revisit. Are we together? Yes. And there's more where this money comes. As he puts it in his pocket. Remember? Stuffing the money in his pocket and promising him, if you want more, you can ask for more. I have more in my bag. Identify 2 items that Paul's mother expects to find when she later feels the ball of money in his pocket. Mothers know their children, isn't it? We expect certain things from our sons, certain things from our girl child. If the mother expected to find a frog, correct, and a magic pocket knife. I hope you got that right. Let's see at a learner's response. Pocket knife and frog. The next one said a frog, microscope, and a pocket knife. Who is correct? This one. Pocket knife, a mug, a frog, mug. How many items were we looking for? For 2 items. This unfortunate learner wrote how many? 3 items. And what are those items? A frog. Is the frog correct? Yes. Good. Right. A microscope. No, microscope is not correct. What do? We mark the learner wrong. And we ignore pocket knife. And then pocket knife is correct. But unfortunately, you were asked to do what? To give 2 items. 2. Only 2 items. Only 2. So do not go on a guessing game and write more than you were required or you were asked. We have a pocket knife, we have a frog. 1 mark, 1 mark. A frog, a microscope. The second one is incorrect. So we don't even look at the third response. Be careful, follow instructions. You will also be required to respond to knowledge questions. Let's look at question 5.1.4. Explain how all night Sam had helped to kill a man. Remember what Paul said. All night Sam and me, we helped to kill a man. That's in line 15. How did he do that? How did All Night Sam help? All Night Sam helped to kill a man by playing a dedication from Mr. Hager to his wife, asking her to make up and start again. We gave a marker there. The woman in the apartment hears the dedication and shoots at Mr. Hager. We call such questions knowledge question. You can be able to answer such questions because they are based on what? On the story, on the content of the story. So you cannot read the story overnight and think you can respond to questions and think short stories are easy. You need to take time. Invest your time. Know all your 8 short stories. Have knowledge. Learners, you are also going to be asked on figures of speech. From the beginning of the year, we have done figures of speech. We've also done them in grade 11 as well as in grade 10. Let's see what you remember of figures of speech. Identify the figure of speech in this line. for 1 mark. Explain why this figure of speech is relevant in the extract. Correct. It's a metaphor. Why is it relevant? Remember the cave? The figure of speech is relevant because Paul tries to hide from the awful or the bad experience he has had. The knowledge that he contributed to Mr. Hagar's death and finds shelter. Where does he find shelter? Protection in his bed. You go into a cave, a dark cave, to hide yourself from all things bad outside. So you get your full 1 mark, and if you have such a response, you get your 2 marks. Moving right along. Let's look at the question. Refer to lines 21 to 22. Yes, sir, said Mr. Hagar. How can I help you? Remember what we said about the ellipses? They are missing words, so it means you have to go back to the extract. What tone would Mr. Hagar use in this lines? You read from line 21 to 22. A further question is, why would Mr. Hagar use that particular tone in these lines? Let's see. Polite, he's very polite, as if nothing happened earlier. He is inquiring, or he is anticipating to be asked questions. And we all know that he's hiding something, isn't it? But he's trying to have courage. How can I help you? He's very polite, isn't it? He wants to appear very polite because he is addressing what? A policeman. Here we got our 1 mark. He's addressing a policeman, or he is ashamed of his behavior. Behavior, what the behavior are we referring to? Of having a woman in his apartment when the wife is not there. He's also ashamed of the noise that they made. He also feels very guilty. So he wants to placate. People shouldn't know what had actually happened or transpired. Characterization, a question on character. You will not write a literature exam where you are not asked figures of speech, you are not asked characterization, you are not asked about the tone. As you read and study, make sure you are able to ask yourself questions that we have asked you this afternoon. What does this extract reveal about the character of the woman? Substantiate your answer. Substantiate, to give proof to your first response. The woman is insensitive. Why is she insensitive? She sees Paul is shocked, but does not do anything to comfort him. What she actually does is she presses or threatens Paul. So character there, what does this reveal about the woman's character? She is insensitive. For insensitive, what do you get? You get 1 mark. Why is she insensitive? Because even though she sees Paul is shocked and frightened and scared, She does not do anything to comfort him. For your substantiation or for your explanation or your evidence, you get your second mark. One of you can say, I don't think she's insensitive. Or, yes, she's insensitive, but also, isn't she cruel? Yes, she's cruel. And then what do we do with the cruel? We give a mark. But you must also give us an explanation why you think that. She grabs him by the arm in an attempt to restrain him. She grabs Paul, threatens him. And that's being very cruel, isn't it? This frightened 8-year-old boy, when you grab him violently, oh dear, you're making him really, really afraid. She's trying to stop him from fleeing. So we have another mark. Oh, I hear you. One of you says, ma'am, she is dishonest. Dishonest. Yes, she's dishonest. You're correct. We are going to give you a mark. Why is she dishonest? Are you going to give us an explanation or a substantiation? She offers him a bribe to remain silent. So that is another mark for you. So all of you got your 2 marks. We're happy, isn't it? The one who said insensitive and then gave an explanation. The one who said she's cruel and an explanation. And dishonest. That's how we do it when we do characterization. Remember, you are also guided by the marks. Substantiate, we expect you to give evidence or to explain more. We say it's a combination. You cannot have one. Always give a character, and then give a substantiation. Let's look at open-ended questions. This type of questions ask you to give us more, to discuss what you think. Why do you think? The question says, Paul's mother is overprotective. It's a statement, isn't it? And then we want you to take a position. If you agree, maybe let me rephrase. Why do you think Paul's mother is overprotective? You will give us an answer in the yes. If you think that Paul's mother is not overprotective and your response is no, you must also tell us, why do you think that the position? With your yes answer, if Paul's mother does not want him to watch the adult movie, she repeatedly instructs him to apply certain safety measures. You can mention the safety measures. You remember them? No? Dialing when things are wrong, calling the neighbors, when he is sick, dialing the doctor's number, calling the firefighters when the house is on fire. You remember all that. You can give us those. She is concerned that he might look at germs through the microscope. And that's what boys do, isn't it? Being very adventurous. She's overprotective. I don't want my baby to get sick. I don't want my baby to watch adult movies because his mind will be polluted. I want to apply certain measures, safety measures, because I don't want my son to be hurt. I don't want him to be sick. Right. And you're saying, no, ma'am, she is not overprotective. Paul's parents, I disagree. You say no. Okay, why are you saying no? Paul's parents leave him alone at night while they go to the movies. That's reason enough, isn't it? It means they are not overprotective. They are protective, yes, but not overly. They still give him space. They still give him the latitude of staying home at night alone. Paul's mother ensures that he knows what to do in the case of an emergency. So that's not being overprotective. He will do the right thing. So Paul's mother has faith in her baby. He will do the right thing. Paul will dial. Paul will call the fireman. Paul will do all the things that he is required to do when there is an emergency. She is more amused than concerned when she finds the money in his pocket. Okay, let's go to extract B. Let's see if we can get more questions. I hope you nailed all those. Right, I'm going to read with you. Key, read and read and read. A door slammed next door. Now someone hammered on a door. Paul looked down into his microscope once more, looked at nothing. While a pricking sensation spread over his skin, he faced the truth. The man and woman would kill each other if he did not stop them. He beat on the wall with his face, with his fist. Mr. Hager, stop it! He cried. Mrs. Hager, stop it! For Ollie from Lavinia, all night Sam cried back at him. For Ruth from Carl, who'll never forget last Tuesday. For Wilbur and for Max. Who's lonesome tonight? Here's the Salter Finnegan's band, asking love, what are you doing to my heart? As he's listening to this dedication coming from the radio by All Night Sam, couples sending dedications. Next door, he could hear what? The crockery smashing, feeling a split second of radio silence. And then the tidal wave of music drowned everything again. Mark, tidal wave of music. Thinking of the sea, isn't it? The waves, water gushing. Paul stood by the wall, trembling in his helplessness. Mr. Hager, Mrs. Hager, please. Remember the number, said All Night Sam. Milton 93000. Dazed, Paul went to the phone and dialed the number. WJCD, said the switchboard operator. Would you kindly connect me with All Night Sam? Said Paul. Hello, said All Night Sam. He was eating, talking with a full mouth in the background. Paul could hear sweet, bleating music, the original of what was rending the radio next door. I wonder if I might make a dedication, said Paul. Don't know? Why not? You can go along. When, where, what? Setting, remember? Place and time. Describe the setting of this extract. The correct answer is you. Remember, it's 2 marks. And setting, remember to tell us about the place and about the time. When, where, and when. The setting is in the Leonard's house, where when Paul was alone and his parents had gone to watch the movies. Please get that right. When, where. Figures of speech again. Referred to line 12. And then the tidal wave drowned everything. So we want to know, you identify. For identification, the question will come. Identify the figure of speech in this line. The response should be metaphor. You remember. Correct. The tidal wave. Drowning. Explain why this figure of speech is used in this passage. The loud music is compared to a strong tidal wave. What does that tidal wave do? It drowns or deafens the music. You got yourself too. Right, irony. A question on irony. Mrs. Hager thinks that the house is untidy because there was no woman. And she was not there to do what? To clean it. You know, men with houses. See the state of the house. How the feuding couple left it. And then when she came, our Mrs. Hager found her apartment dirty and said, "Ooh, men, if left alone, cannot do anything." The house bad. She thinks it is just her man not being able to take care of himself. No, we know the real reason, isn't it? But the truth is the house was untidy because Mr. Hager and his mistress had a fight. You give us one part and the next part. As we were doing questions earlier, where we asked you to substantiate, where we asked you to give 2 items, we could give you 1 mark for that and the second mark for that. With irony, grade 12, remember, it is 2. You must give us 2, both sides, or you get a 0. We are not going to mark you 1. We're going to mark you 2. And you should clearly indicate. We want to see that you understand what irony is. What you need to do is go back to past question papers, read all your short stories, get next door again, reread it, try the questions asked in those question papers, respond, mark yourself right, check the memos supplied, ask your teacher. It should be intentional. Remember what I said earlier? You cannot wake up on the eve of the exam when we write prelim and you get into the class without having studied. Read the short stories. Know your literary analysis. Know what a figure of speech is. What is a metaphor? What is a simile? How you respond to an irony. What is expected of you when we ask you for characterization? We will ask you for a character, and then we will proceed to want a substantiation. Most importantly, remember the setting. If we ask you to describe the setting, we expect you to respond with the where and the when, the place and the time. Grade 12 learners. We have, if I'm not wrong, I think we have 45 days left before we sit for our final exams. Do not procrastinate. Never procrastinate. What is the procrastinate? If you don't have to waste time, don't put what you were supposed to do today for tomorrow. If you put off studying until the night before your exam, it will be very difficult to retain all that information in your brain. Instead, try the following. Study in blocks, taking breaks every 30 to 60 minutes. Review the work right after class so it is still fresh in your mind. After this lesson, go back to your next door, reread it, ask yourself questions. You've taken the notes. See how much you know. In your class, your winter schools, they will be teaching you this and the other. Don't waste time. Please make sure that you go back. If you are taught during the day, in the evening, put away time to study. Briefly summarizing what we have studied every block. Thank you, grade 12 learners, for participating in this lesson today. Thank you for watching this lesson. Please remember to sanitize, wear your mask, maintain social distancing, and keep safe. See you next time. Goodbye.